Hey, true crime fanatics, this is Claire.
And I'm Andy.
You're tuned in to the Homicide Hobbies podcast, which is a podcast for people who love to hear about the horrendous crimes that people commit. Enjoy. Where are we?
Today we'll be in a state that has only one town. Everywhere else is either a city, a borough, or a township.
Need
another?
Yeah.
The Big Mac was invented in 1967 by Jim Delegati, who owned several Mickey D's. And there's even a Big Mac museum you can go visit.
The Illinois?
Nope.
Arkansas?
This state is also where the smiley face emoji-con.
Do
you know the original, the semicolon and the parentheses or whatever? It was invented by Professor Scott Fallman on September 19th, 1982.
New Mexico.
This state was originally land that was given to William Penn in 1681 to settle an old debt King Charles II had.
Pennsylvania?
With William's father, yes. Today we'll be in Pennsylvania. That's why I saved that one for last. I figured it would be too easy.
Yeah.
But also, I was reading and it said that Pennsylvania is not named after William Penn. You know, the fellow that King Charles gave the land to. The state is actually named after William's father. And I was like, oh, what's his name? His name is also William Penn. So, yeah. Our time frame is going to be 2001 to 2004. This case, we're just going to get into it. Okay. So Cheryl Kunkle was 28 years old and living in Pennsylvania. She had a 12-year-old son named Gregory Rowe from a previous relationship. And if you do the math in, Cheryl was around 16 when she gave birth to her son. Cheryl worked as a security guard and was going through training to become a police officer.
Where are her parents?
They love her and think she can do no wrong. Cheryl began dating a twice-divorced 48-year-old Benjamin Amato.
At 16?
No, I said she's 28. She was 16 when she had her son.
Oh.
But when she's 28, she starts dating 48-year-old Benjamin Amato. He has no biological children, but he did have 2 stepdaughters. Cheryl and Benjamin had a tumultuous relationship. Cheryl was verbally abusive to Ben, and he had no patience for her nonsense.
Sounds like a healthy relationship.
Yep, and Ben was about to be done with Cheryl's crazy when in February of 1998, Cheryl found out she was pregnant with Ben's baby.
Ew.
But Ben, being done with the relationship, was not interested in trying to force the relationship to work just because she was pregnant. In fact, Ben had confided in one of his stepdaughters that if Cheryl had his baby, he was scared because he was never going to be rid of Cheryl. By November of 1998, Cheryl and Ben had officially broken up, and she also gave birth to their son, a little boy they named Jonathan.
So is he an absentee parent?
Not by choice. Cheryl filed harassment charges against Ben because the guy just wanted to spend time with his boy. And I think Cheryl was doing one of those, if you don't want to be with me, then you don't want to be with your son. Ben and Cheryl go to court for the harassment charges, and she acted like a Fruit Loop when the judge acquits Ben of the harassment charges. And Cheryl asked the judge, what do I have to do? Kill him to get him to leave me alone? I don't know who asked the judge that, but she did. Since Cheryl was playing keep away with their son, Jonathan, Ben did the only thing he could do. He petitioned the court for visitation. Their relationship had soured so much that Ben told his custody attorney that if he ended up dead, Cheryl did it.
That's sad.
It is sad. All because he wants to be a part of his son's life. Cheryl and Ben were in the early stages of their nasty custody battle over Jonathan, who, by the way, at this point is 2.5, almost 3 years old, when in August of 2001, Cheryl's home was burglarized, and police ended up arresting a woman named April Steinhauser and her boyfriend, Nathaniel Evans, for the burglary. And strange enough, Cheryl decided not to press charges against the thieves.
But
right. That was in August. We're going to jump forward to November.
Why would you not charge somebody who broke into your house
and stole your stuff? We'll get there. So just days before the exes, Ben and Cheryl were supposed to appear in court for their contentious custody hearing, police went out to do a welfare check on Ben because he was MIA. It was November 16th, 2001, when the police entered Ben's home to find blood everywhere. There was blood on the floor. There was blood splatter along the stairs. Some of the blood stains appeared to be from someone coughing out their own blood. There were dozens of dents on the stairwell along the stairwell walls caused by a blunt object. It was clear to the investigators someone had either hit the door and the walls with some sort of tool. Investigators discovered a bloody boot print at the top of the stairs and a lifeless, bloodied 52-year-old Ben Amato murdered at the bottom of the stairs. Police believe that someone tried to make the crime scene look as if Ben had come home and interrupted a burglary, but there was nothing stolen, including the $1,000 cash that was in Ben's wallet.
Why is it always that people try to do, like, let's fling stuff around so it looks like it was a burglary, but let's not take anything?
I think because they don't want to get caught with the anything. Quite frankly, I'm curious how the police determine if anything of value is stolen.
There's a dusty spot left behind.
Clean your house.
Like, I would imagine, say, like, where people put their watches, or is the TV still there? You know, like...
Yeah. But what if it was like a different scenario of it was one specific thing that somebody was breaking in for?
You don't think that they would take the cash out of someone's wallet? I feel like even if they were going in because they saw the TV or a handgun or anything else, they're going to take anything on their way out that if it's this is valuable, and cash, seems like a wallet would be on the first of things to check.
True. The coroner determined 52-year-old Ben Amato's cause of death was blunt force trauma from a bat or a baton. Police began looking into Cheryl Kunkle, Ben's baby mama. Police learned that Cheryl and Ben did not have a healthy relationship at all. And while the police were talking to Cheryl, she flat out told the officers that were asking questions about Ben that she didn't like the kind of person he was, she didn't like the kind of father he was, and she didn't want anything to do with Ben, and she really couldn't care less that he was dead.
I don't feel like that in itself is suspicious.
Well, what do officers do when they have no other suspects and the one person they're talking to is an ex that wants to do nothing but talk crap about the deceased and had something to gain in the death? Why, they obtain a search warrant. So police go and search Cheryl's possessions to see if they could find any connection between Cheryl and Ben's murder. Instead, they discover a police report from that August burglary where Nathaniel and April had been arrested but no charges were pursued. Police were like, maybe these two are worth looking into. Thinking like, maybe.
Dude, did she make a deal with them that she won't charge them for breaking into her house if they break in and kill her baby daddy?
So I was thinking that, except no. So the police were like, these guys seem like trouble. Let's go check it out. And when they ran Nathaniel's name, he was already in jail in a neighboring county for some other crime that he committed. The police drive over and decide to talk to this non-law-abiding citizen and see what they can piece together, if anything. Police were thrown when Nathaniel told the officers that Cheryl propositioned him in April to kill her baby daddy, Ben Amato, back in July.
That's what I said.
No, she propositioned them in July. They broke into her house in August.
Oh, so it was just a test?
So she propositioned them in July. She was like, hey, I want you to kill Ben. If you can't do it...
Are they so stupid they got the address mixed up?
Listen, she was like, and if you guys can't kill Ben, could you find somebody else who will? She even gave them a picture of Ben so they would kill the correct individual. Nathaniel told the officers that Cheryl said she was angry because Ben was filing for custody of their son. Cheryl then paid Nathaniel and April $1,500 cash up front. Cheryl assured them that she had the rest of the cash in hand and it would be paid to them only after Ben was dead. But this criminal couple weren't murderers, nor did they run with murderers. They were burglars. So Nathaniel and April decided to break into Cheryl's home that August, and they stole $6,000 cash from her. And after Nathaniel and April were arrested for stealing the cash and went to jail, Cheryl drove herself to the jail to confront her burglar, and that's when Nathaniel...
I'm surprised they let her in.
Right? I figured because there was glass there, they were like, I guess, whatever. But that was when Nathaniel let Cheryl know, hey, so if you decide to further press charges, I still have the photo of Ben that you gave us, and you were the one that paid me in an attempt to secure custody of your kid to go kill Ben. So you want to pursue burglary charges, that information might be provided to the police. Now, keep in mind, Ben's still alive during this whole threatening between Nathaniel and Cheryl. It was in August.
Oh, yeah, because it's a burglary, an attempted
Yeah, and Cheryl opted not to press charges for those burglars.
You know what? I hope they go to jail for a very long time because they had an opportunity to come forward also.
Right. Nothing happens, though. But that's why she decided not to press charges, because she was feared that...
But they don't get charged?
Mm-mm. She dropped the charges because she was afraid that they were going to rat out her murder-for-hire plan. And since he hadn't been murdered yet...
I know, but after he's murdered, they don't get charged with anything?
Nope.
That's despicable.
Lucky for Nathaniel, police knew that he didn't follow through with the murder-for-hire plot because he was already in jail when Ben was fatally beaten. So that was the end of 2001, right?
Mm-hmm.
By late 2002, Cheryl found out that she was going to be a grandmother.
Oh.
Her now almost 17-year-old son, Greg, got his nearly 16-year-old girlfriend, Kristen Fisher, pregnant. And Greg was not happy about the pregnancy. Greg told Kristen she needed to go have an abortion, and she was devastated and refused.
Her 17-year-old boy?
Yeah, he's now 17, and he knocked up his girlfriend and wanted her to go abort the baby. And she's like, I'm not doing that. So the young couple break up. Also in 2002, December 2nd, Cheryl was given paperwork by one of Ben's stepdaughters to sign on behalf of her now 6-year-old son, Jonathan, for roughly $7,500, and it was what was left from Ben's estate after everyone stuck their grubby hands into it. So Jonathan inherited $7,500. Soon-to-be Grandma Cheryl was arrested on July 23rd, 2003, and charged with conspiracy to commit murder. Unfortunately, police didn't have much else to go on, and Ben's case would go cold, and Cheryl would post her bond and be out and about awaiting her impending court date. So, at this point, Ben's been murdered, his estate has been closed out, Greg is almost 18, his almost 17-year-old girlfriend is pregnant, they've broken up, and now Cheryl's been arrested but out on bond for her murder-for-hire plan. And then on October 1st, 2003, Kristen Fisher gave birth to a little baby girl, Kaylee Fisher. We're going to skip forward to May 4th, 2004. Police received a call about a possible murder-suicide or a double murder.
Oh, God.
Kristen Fisher was now 17 years old, and her little baby girl, Kaylee, was 7 months old. They were both found dead. At first, the police were unsure whether it was a murder-suicide because 17-year-old Kristen was found hanging from a rope, and her 7-month-old daughter was found drowned in the bathtub. Upon realizing Kristen's ligature marks were not consistent with a suicidal hanging, investigators began looking into who had the most to gain from Kristen and Kaylee's deaths. That led police to now 18-year-old Gregory Rowe. May 5th, the day after Kristen and Kaylee were found dead, Kristen and Greg were due in court to start a child support case. Police also learned Kristen had confided in her friend that Greg had threatened to kill her if she didn't stop trying to go after him for child support. Police said it was like deja vu happening over again.
That's because it is.
Mm-hmm. Police go out to Cheryl and Greg's home to investigate
I'm
Greg.
not convinced it wasn't her idea.
Well, police go out to Cheryl and Greg's home to investigate Greg for the murders of Kristen and Kaylee, and Cheryl ended up being arrested for tampering with evidence and trying to obstruct justice. When the officers served Cheryl with the search warrant, they told her, don't touch anything, don't move, sit still, let us do our job. And Cheryl was like, I don't have to listen to you, this is my house. And she went out to her garage to go grab stuff from her son's car because since the warrant included the vehicle, she wanted to grab a few things that she might need before they haul it off. So they arrested Cheryl for being a pain in the ass.
Rightfully so.
And since Cheryl was out on bail for the murder for hire case, that was revoked because she just got arrested.
Mm-hmm.
And part of being on bail is you can't get arrested for any other crimes. So her butt was going to sit behind bars while investigators tried to sort out the devastation she and her boy had caused. Police believe that Greg tried to make it look like Kristen had drowned their daughter and then hanged herself. Police seized Greg's computer with that search warrant, and fresh in his search history was how to tie a hangman's noose.
Ugh.
During Greg's interrogation, self-preservation took hold of Greg, and he sang like a canary. He told the officers...
It was all his mom's idea.
He told the officers when he was 15, his mother drove him to Ben's place, and she handed Greg the keys and come back and pick her up in an hour. Why was this story interesting to police? Why, it was
the day his pa died.
Well, it's not his dad, but yes, it was the day that Ben Amato was murdered.
How was it not his dad?
Greg was Cheryl's son that she brought into her relationship with Ben. Jonathan is the son that she had with Ben. And Jonathan's like 6 years old. Her son was 12 when they got together.
Oh, yeah. She had a baby when
she was 16.
Okay, so the older boy, she says, come back. Got it.
Right. The little boy, Jonathan, is, again, he's in early elementary school age. But Greg wasn't finished tattletaling on his mom yet. He told police when he returned to pick his mom up, she jumped into the back seat of the car with a bloody baseball bat, and she was covered in blood. He said that she changed her clothes in the back seat as she told Greg to drive, drive, drive. And while he drove, she was chucking stuff out the window of the car. And that was it. Greg was the missing link the police needed to tie Cheryl to the murder of Ben Amato. So at this point, Cheryl is in her mid-30s, like 35. I did read an article that says she was 37, but because there's so many court dates, I gave up on trying to figure it out. She's about 35 years old when she was arrested for the murder of her ex, 52-year-old Benjamin Amato, and her boy Gregory Rowe was arrested for the double murder of Kristen and Kaylee Fisher, as well as child pornography charges thanks to some stuff they found on his computer. I did have a momentary pause on that one, mainly because, and this is all speculation on my part, but if Kristen and him were minors and she sent him any titty pics or anything of that nature, she was a minor, it's still a pornography charge. Does that make sense? Even if they were both minors when she sent them to him.
Well, did he get convicted of it? Because I feel like it's easier to have it thrown out if it's like they're both underage and it's his girlfriend.
They let the pornography charges go, and that's why I also suspected it was of his girlfriend. But Greg flat out had said that his mother murdered both Kristen and Kaylee, not him. He said the truth is out there. They just fail to see it. January 25th, 2006, Gregory Rowe was convicted of both first-degree murders of his ex-girlfriend, Kristen Fisher, and their 7-month-old baby girl, Kaylee Fisher.
I think just the fact that even if he was aware of the plot, he deserves to go to jail forever, too. Because that was his little girl.
Yeah. He was sentenced to life without parole, and he maintains his innocence. Many believe that Cheryl assisted in the murders of Kristen and Kaylee, which I believe she probably did. And before you side with Greg and question whether he was guilty or innocent at all, just know...
I already sided.
Well, just know that on the day of the murders, he went to the local hardware store by himself, and when a manager did the whole, hey, can I help you with anything? Greg asked about buying rope that he could use to strangle his ex with. It's unclear at that point if Greg actually purchased anything from the hardware store, but let's not forget his search history, and also that Kristen... She was on the phone with her mother, Kathleen, when Greg arrived to her house. She told her mom, oh, he's here. I gotta go. So he's convicted. He gets life without parole. He doesn't get the death sentence because on February 6, 2007, Gregory testified against his mother, Cheryl. That horrific day, November 16, 2001, Cheryl had waited in Ben's home at the top of the stairs. As Ben ascended the stairs, Cheryl popped out and pepper sprayed his eyes. That incapacitated him enough that Cheryl seized the moment and began hitting him with a baseball bat. Ben fell to the ground. Cheryl continued her vicious assault on Ben as he tried to flee back down the stairs. Cheryl was in hot pursuit of Ben as he went down the stairs, and she was swinging the bat over and over, hence the dents in the wall. Eventually, Ben laid still at the base of the stairs, and that wasn't enough for Cheryl. She continued to beat on his lifeless body until her son pulled up, and then she fled with her 15-year-old son in the getaway car. The judge from Cheryl and Ben's harassment hearing, he testified about the remarks Cheryl had made in his courtroom about did she have to kill Ben to get him to go away. Also, Cheryl had briefly dated a police officer who she told she fought with Ben all the way down the stairs in Ben's house the day that he was murdered.
All of these people are pieces of shit.
That officer did lose his job for not coming forward with the details that Cheryl had given him. Between the judge, the police officer boyfriend, and her son, Cheryl's goose was cooked. On February 14th, 2007, Cheryl was found guilty of first-degree murder and tampering with evidence. On June 20th, 2007, she was also sentenced to life without parole. That left me curious about her and Ben's son. Jonathan. So I did a search on Jonathan Kunkle, and the little boy, well, I guess he's not a little boy anymore, but when he was, Jonathan was Benjamin's only biological child. And the article I found was titled, "Out of 65K inheritance, only $7,524 reached boy." So I was curious, so I read that. Benjamin Amato had $500,000, most of which was held jointly with his 85-year-old mother, Lee. When Ben was brutally murdered, his mother became the sole owner of their joint holdings. That all makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Jonathan, being Ben's only biological child, stood to inherit what was in just Ben's name, which was roughly $65,500. However, after taxes, funeral expenses, and the estate costs, all that was left for the little boy was $7,524. This article, I don't know what inspired them, but I found it interesting because they broke down the debt. It's all public information. If you didn't know that, you can look up anybody's estate situation after they're dead and see any of it. It was written out that miscellaneous debt of $5,648, funeral expenses totaled $14,478, payments of $13,155 to administer his estate, including filing fees, auction commissions, and advertising expenses, and also reimbursement of some insurance company. And then there was also the state inheritance tax of $13,000, almost $200. All of that came out of Ben's estate. But according to the Pennsylvania tax records of Monroe County Orphans Court, Jonathan's inheritance paid all the taxes on the estates and joint holdings that Ben had with his mother, Lee, which I thought that was shady on Lee's part to use her dead son's estate to pay taxes. She has all the holdings. She has that $500,000 worth of property. Pay your own damn taxes. Then one of Ben's former stepdaughters was paid $7,000 for being the executor of Ben's will, and then another almost $5,000 for accounting and legal fees. Why am I bringing any of this up? I thought it was crazy. John's inheritance paid the inheritance tax on Ben's home. The home was registered in Ben's name, and he also put both his stepdaughters on the title to the house. So after Jonathan paid for these two women to inherit his father's house, the paperwork that Cheryl signed when she was presented with that $7,500 check, it signed away Jonathan's interests and any future claims on his father's property or holdings or anything. And then when Cheryl found out that by signing that paper, she screwed her son out of being the sole biological heir to $500,000. I just thought that was shady. And then she also claimed that Jonathan spent his entire $7,500, he was 5-6 years old when he got that, on toys. When asked about the distribution of assets, Ben's former stepdaughter apparently responded harshly and said, "It's none of your business. The public does not need to know about our private finances." And she's not wrong. But all I can say is I hope that everyone acted to protect Jonathan's interest while he was a minor and still in the care of his murderous mother. Because that does make sense to me. If they suspected Cheryl did it,
Yeah,
I have understanding for that. But now that he's in his 20s, I hope everybody's done right by this young man. Because it's bad enough his mom murdered his father.
yeah.
This poor little guy. And I also thought it was absolutely nuts that Cheryl and her son both basically committed the same crime. The only difference...
They did. Well, she raised her boy, so it would make sense.
Kind of.
Well,
Till
she had...
Yeah, till she went to jail.
Yeah, I would say it was her idea because he didn't want the kid that... I'm just surprised that she wouldn't have had a different, like being on the other side of... She could have been an influence of, like, what she went through as somebody who didn't want a pregnancy.
Yeah. I thought it was deeply disturbing that he or she drowned a 7-month...
It's 2 generations.
Well,
2 generations of pieces of shit.
How the hell do you drown a 7-month-old baby?
With water.
You're an asshole.
He said how. But I'm surprised that they went that length and weren't trying to keep the baby, especially that's her grandchild.
Right. Well, she's a heartless cunt.
Clearly.
But that's all I got on Cheryl Ann Kunkle and her piece of shit son, Gregory Rowe.
Well, thanks for that.
These two. Something awful.
Thank you for listening to Homicide Hobbies. I'm Claire.
I'm Andy.
Follow us each week to get your fix of the atrocities that occur in true crime. And don't forget to tell people about us and rate us if you like us. But don't rate us if you didn't. Just change the channel.